behavioral plans, but just a few things that I wanted to discuss with you guys. But my name is Jill Dyer. I am a speech language pathologist. My job is to help people pretty much with anything from here to here. That's what I like to say. Brain, memory, thinking, the mouth, speech, throat, voice, swallowing, that's kind of my area. Clear down, I'll leave that up to the PTs and the OTs. I went to Western Kentucky University for my bachelor's degree, and then I got my master's degree at University of Louisville. I've been with Frazier for 23 years. I worked 10 years downtown, and then I've been here at Medical Center East for 13 years as outpatient. So I've seen a lot of Parkinson's patients. Most of my Parkinson's patients that I see are for voice, trying to get the volume louder, and that's something I think is coming up in a couple of weeks. You're gonna hear from my colleague Pam, who was actually my supervisor, and when I was a student, she's great and she's awesome at voice. But there are some times cognitive issues that come along with Parkinson's disease, and I think that's what,
we're gonna move in a little bit.
Sure, am I not loud enough?
No, you're fine. It's our hearing.
Hearing, yeah, I heard that too.
I can hear you fine, but she was like, what?
And I have hearing aids.
Well, let's move.
I'll try to speak a little louder too. One reason why I didn't want to like get in the middle of the room, I kind of wanted to be, but maybe middle of the room would be better. So cognition is basically the mental processes of your brain and ability to remember, think, process information from your environment. Parkinson's disease can affect your cognition. It doesn't always. I think everybody's different. The Parkinson's affects people differently. But it can, just like it slows the body's movements, also slows the vocal cords, makes it harder for you to be heard. It also can slow your cognitive processes, your thinking, your memory, that kind of thing. So, you know, the biggest question is, what can you do about that? What is it that can be done? And it's hard to fix it per se, but there are some strategies and things that you can do to kind of work around it. The first thing is you want to make sure you talk to your doctor, because if there is, especially a new onset of cognitive difficulties, then that's something your doctor needs to be aware of, because there could be medications that are affecting that. You could have something, you know, anything like a UTI can affect your cognition, can make it harder for you to remember and process information. It could be something else that they want to run a test for. So making sure the doctor is aware of it's the first step. They may want to do more testing, like neuropsychological testing. That's another thing that your doctor can help you with in regards to knowing what's causing the cognitive difficulties. Is it from Parkinson's, or is it something else that's causing that? Therapy can help. So speech therapy, occupational therapy, can provide you with some tricks or strategies or compensations to help with some of the memory and thinking difficulties that you may be having. And that's kind of where I come in with the Parkinson's patients that I see is, you know, it's hard to fix it, but are there some things we can do to help work our way around it? Some strategies. And that's usually what we do in therapies. Talk about the strategies, and then we practice using the strategies. So I divided up, what I try to do is, you know, cognition comes in different, what we call areas. So you have like memory, attention, organization, thought processing. So I tried to divide up the areas of cognition and then just give you a few little strategies on what we practice on in a treatment session to help with that. So the first thing I have listed is memory. We have what we call WRAP strategies, W-R-A-P, it's an acronym. It stands for write it down, repeat it, associate it, picture it. So if you're trying to remember something specific, you've got just a couple of things to go get at the grocery store, write it down would be the first thing. If you can't get it written down, what else can I do? I can repeat it several times in my head. Can I associate it or link it together with something familiar that will help me remember it? Can I picture it? So those strategies, we would practice those strategies in like a therapy session if we were doing this in therapy. So those strategies can help with your memory, and I use those pretty much all the time. I've got it either on my phone, or I've got a list with me, or if I've just got a couple things, I'm driving to the store, I'm like, okay, milk, eggs, and ice cream, milk, eggs, and And so I just kind of keep saying it in my head so that I get it. When I get there, I know what I'm doing. I usually come out with more than I need, but that's, don't we all, right?
Oh, yeah.
Using a memory journal is another little good strategy that you can try. Just a simple little notebook with the date at the top, and you just jot down a couple things that happened that day. Where you went to lunch, who you talked to on the phone, if you went anywhere, what movie you watched, what show you watched, whatever it may be. And then that way you have it written down. You can refer back to it. So if by the end of the week you're thinking, now what did I do on Wednesday? You can go back in your book, you can look at Wednesday's date, and there it is. Oh yeah, I remember doing those things. You know, it's just kind of like a little memory jog that can help with recall. Because once you see it, then all those memories flood back to you, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a good one. So I know with Parkinson's, writing is hard for a lot of my patients. That's difficult to do because of the tremors. So, you know, you can have somebody help you. You can try using your voice to text, like on a phone or some sort of computer system that will kind of text it for you or type it out for you as you talk into it. So I've always encouraged, you know, use of that, family members, friends to help with the writing if that's an issue, and that can be an issue for a lot of people. Using a calendar, of course, putting your appointments on a calendar, putting it on your phone, setting alarms on your phone for reminders. I had one patient who was really struggling with taking his medication. You know, he took it 3-4 times a day, every several hours, and he was really struggling with it. So he put an alarm in his phone for 8, 12, 3, 8, you know, and every time the alarm goes off, he knows to go take his medication. And it worked pretty well for him until he
But my alarm goes off, I'm in the middle of doing something. By the time I finish what I'm doing, I forgot to take my meds.
Yes.
Yeah, my husband has a little bit of a problem that way, but he started learning, you know, as soon as that alarm goes off, I need to do it right then, or, you know, just, I have to do this in the next few minutes.
It's snooze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if snooze is an option, you hit snooze, and that way you're reminded again in another 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever it may be. But yeah, that is with the alarms. You have to kind of do it right when you need to, you know, like, you know, or hit snooze or reset the alarm if you can. Okay, I'm right in the middle of something. I cannot stop what I'm doing. Let me reset the alarm, you know, or if at all possible, you just, I gotta stop what I'm doing. Go take my meds and get back to it. Yeah, it is. It's hard. I mean, because you don't want, because then you're like, well, I forget what I'm doing if I stop and come back. Yeah. Maybe even a little, you know, a little post-it note, or if you're in the middle of something, make yourself a little note of where you are. You know, dog tag something if you need to, you know, so that way when you do come back to it, you'll have a little bit of, oh, this is what I'm doing. But yeah, that's a tricky one. Making lists, that's always a good one, especially days where you don't have a lot to do. You know, I always try to make myself a list of, you know, 2 or 3 things I want to get done this, you know, today. Makes me more productive. And then I feel good about it after it's done. I'm like, oh, look what I did today. I did all the things on my list. So, you know, make yourself a list of things that need to get done. And these are the things I really want to work on today. So I'm going to do this and this. And then when I'm done with it, I mark them off my list and look how successful I was today. Make sure you refer back to your list in your journals. So that's another little, you know, just because, although writing it down is another memory strategy, just writing it down, or even just, you know, texting and speaking it into a note in your phone or whatever, helps you remember it better, just because you had that extra little input, other than just trying to remember it on your own. Does that make sense? And then going back, and you can always refer back to it as you need to. You know, always talk to my patients too about using Siri and Alexa. Those are great little tools if you are open to trying different technology. Siri and Alexa are great. Hey, you know, Alexa, remind me to do this at 2 o'clock this afternoon, or remind me that I have an appointment tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. You know, so those are great tools to use. Practice them. I always tell my patients and my family members, when you do stuff like that, new stuff, practice it first before you really just go into having to use it all the time, so practice that. It's also good practice for using your voice, which is another thing that Parkinson's has difficulty with. Voice, using your voice and making your voice loud enough.
Okay.
And for some, not everybody, but a lot of my Parkinson's patients, they can't be heard by their family. So practicing using Alexa, remind me to, or that type of thing is another good voice exercise as well. Any questions about any of that so far in regards to like memory and memory strategies and little tricks you can try at home?
I'll just say, I've been amazed at how well my phone can transcribe verbal
Yeah.
into text. I mean, I've accidentally hit the mic button and suddenly my text is full of whatever was being said on the radio.
It's even listening to the radio.
You're right, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't write all this. It just inserted things from the radio.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, there are times where obviously she will insert words that are not exactly what you said or doesn't quite hear you the right way. Yeah, so you kind of have to proofread it and make sure and go back and change something. But
I've been amazed at how accurate it is sometimes. Maybe it's just because it's a radio instead of my son.
And sometimes it's nice to not have to type everything, you know, like if you're having some dexterity issues and some fine motor things, so it's just nice to hit that button and then talk into it and just send your text that way.
Yeah.
I do that all the time with.
And if your car's hooked to Bluetooth, or if your phone's hooked to Bluetooth in your car,
Mhm.
you don't even realize that, you don't even have to hit a button in your car, you can just say, hey Siri, and then say that you wanna send a text to whoever, and just do it completely hands-free. I've gotten so good at that, even putting in emojis and everything.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, definitely. If technology can be great, it's a catch-22. It can also be kind of frustrating because it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, and it's hard to learn sometimes. But yeah, if you are open to learning technology, it's definitely a good tool to use. It is. I use it a lot. Okay, so another little area that I'm going to touch base on is attention. So that's I feel like one of the biggest things sometimes with Parkinson's that I've noticed with the patients that I've treated for cognition is the attention. It's almost like there's so much going on in the brain. It's hard for the brain to kind of stay focused on the task at hand. So we talk a lot about, making yourself remember things. It's kind of what we call a metacognitive type of thing. Your brain's not gonna do it by itself, but if you tell your brain, hey, you need to pay attention to this, you need to focus here, then you have better attention. I use the analogy sometimes with my patients of putting on blinders, like horses, where sometimes in the horse races, they wear the blinders so that they don't get distracted by the other horses on the other sides of them when they go straight ahead. So it's kind of the same concept, kind of put your blinders, especially if you're doing something important, important phone call, important conversation, put your blinders on so that your brain will stay focused on what you're doing straight ahead and not get distracted. It's hard because the brain, I think, sometimes really gets, things just kind of creep in there and you just kind of lose your attention to what you're doing. Making sure you are turning the TV off, muting the TV when you're talking to somebody. Making sure the loved one gets the attention of the spouse or the whomever before you start in a conversation. It's not just starting the conversation, it's like, hey Betty, we need to, da-da-da-da-da. So getting the attention by saying the person's name. Limiting distractions as much as possible. One thing at a time, which is hard in today's world. We are very much a multitasking society, but when it comes to the way our brains function, especially with Parkinson's at times, multitasking can be difficult. So if possible, you want to do one thing at a time. You want to tell somebody, I can't do this, while you're talking to me. So can I answer that when I finish my task at hand? So if I'm washing the dishes, don't talk to me because I can't multitask that. But when I'm finished, let's have a conversation. So learning to figure out what's most important, let's do that first, and then we'll do what we need to do after that. Okay, so one thing at a time is another big one. Slowing down, be aware of your environment, be aware of the fact that your brain may not be functioning the way it was before, so you need to do other strategies to help support your brain. I talk about that a lot with my patients. I see a lot of stroke patients too, but it's learning that your brain may function differently now, even with Parkinson's, than it did before. So it's learning to embrace that fact, and the fact that I may have to do things differently than I did before, and being okay with that. I may have to make myself more lists than I did before, and that's okay, as long as I'm successful with it. I may have to pace myself a little bit more, or only try to do one thing at a time, versus I didn't have to do that before. But that's okay, as long as I'm successful with it. So I have that conversation a lot with my patients. It's okay to do things differently, as long as you're successful with how you're doing it. Processing and thought organization, that's another little area of cognition that can be impacted sometimes with Parkinson's. It's learning to double check your work, or whatever it is that you're doing. If it's paying the bills, if it's making sure your pill box is organized for the week, making sure you're double checking that and you didn't miss something somewhere. Asking a caregiver to repeat themselves or to give more details about their explanation. I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. Can you give me more? Can you explain it to me again? Can you give it to me in a different way? One step at a time. I always encourage patients to make sure your environment is structured, so make sure you know where things are. You have a place for things. The keys go here, my purse or my wallet goes here, and you keep them there. Don't go changing things around. Sometimes change is not good in regards to that type of thing. So if your keys are always in this dish, then that's just where they need to stay. Or if your phone, I always put my phone here. Just trying to be organized with your environment too. So that way when you get up to go get your phone or your keys, they're where they're supposed to be. So try not to change things around unless it's absolutely necessary. Another little, and this is not on kind of your list, but something else to just kind of think about too is, as I was doing some reading for this, your mental health also affects your cognition. So if you're struggling a little bit with depression or anxiety, then it's going to be harder to remember. It's going to be harder to think. And I have this conversation a lot with some of my patients. It's very common actually, especially after stroke, is that, you can have some struggle with some mental health types of things. And it's, not kind of feeling a little down the dumps, a little anxious about something, makes the memory harder, makes the thinking harder, because the brain wants to focus more on that mental health versus remembering what you need at the grocery store or remembering what you did yesterday, because it's more concentrating on how your mental health is. So as that gets better, then your memory and your thinking also improves. So that's just another little thing to think about and to keep in the back of your mind if these types of issues were to pop up. This website I have here, it really explains things well. Like I said, I was kind of looking through some stuff on the internet. I was like, this is a good one. It just, again, lists out the different areas of cognition, kind of like what I did here, and then different things that you can try at home to help. So that's a good little website to try if you want further information or want to get a little more detailed with.
What's that website name?
Here, I have it, I can give it to you. On the back of this. Sorry, I didn't know you all.
I was just gonna say it on the.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. I see.
So what questions do you guys have? Comments, anything that you are willing to share that's like troublesome for you, and I can try to help find something to
I think
help?
too, one of the things with cognition is what we illustrated a few minutes ago, and it's often wrapped in with other issues.
Sure,
Loss of hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have my hearing aid yet, let me go get my ears.
Yeah.
We get a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you think you're
Ears are important.
you're talking, and you think you're communicating, but actually not so much.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I think the idea of addressing the person first, you know, in the house casually, there's a lot of that, you just throw a comment.
Right. You don't think it's because you live together for some, you know, you can pretty much
Right.
read each other's minds, you know?
But it is important to
Yeah.
make sure the other person actually is.
Yes.
Attentive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I
not
usually start
make
out by
that a-
saying, are you listening to me?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
so
you're in
that's-
an adjacent room, or you're working on the counter, and you start talking.
Yes.
And it's, you get frustrated when you realize, well, she's not listening to me.
Right.
But actually, she's not hearing me.
Right. Right.
And I
Because-
should have checked first.
And it's just a matter of changing kind of how you do
Yeah.
things.
Investing a little more effort
Yes.
in the communication.
Yes, on both of your parts. So, she would do the same thing for you and you do the same thing for her. But
Right.
yeah, so just that change of how you do things
Mhm.
is, but you're
Our
right.
kids and grandkids have gotten used to it. They make sure they're in front of you.
Well, the frustrating thing, I think, with my husband is besides the hearing, and even though he has really good hearing aids, the hearing still is becoming deteriorating with age. And, so I'm never sure that he's really hearing, and it's so frustrating when, like at the gala, when we went over to get the key rings, stamped with an initial or something. I said, well, I don't know that we can use them, but maybe the kids can. Just get a couple with B's on them. Well, he came back with 2 with BB on both of them. Very literal, he thought he knew what I was saying.
Yeah.
And there was something the other day that happened, it was like, I was like, what? And and he completely misunderstood. And I think part of it is just, he hears certain words, but maybe not other sounds and words.
Mhm.
And he just fills in the blanks himself instead of asking, okay, and I say, if you do not hear everything, please ask me. Now, you wanted me to do this and this and this. And then I can correct him, but if I don't know that,
And sometimes you can kind of repeat back to him, so tell me again what you're gonna do, what is it what you do?
Yeah.
So make sure
Yeah.
he did hear you the
Yeah.
right way.
Yeah.
Kind of quiz him a little bit on it.
Yeah, I'm learning I have to do that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, and encouraging him to do this, hey, why don't you ask me if you have questions about that, or, it is, and again, it's a change because he hasn't had to do that before,
Yeah.
so now why do I have to all of a sudden? Yeah.
I do stupid things,
No, you don't.
like the other day I went.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do, they're pretty bad. I don't know if I should write them down so I'm eligible when they finally diagnose me as having dementia, that I can say, look, I already knew that, I put all these things. Like the other day, I wanted to see the back of my hair because I've got this curl, but I don't know where it's come from, and my hair always looks terrible. So I actually went in the bathroom and stood there and just put my head in the back of the mirror, and I thought, oh, I have to get a mirror out. A hand
We
mirror.
had hand mirrors to kind of see
I
the
just stood
back.
there like it was gonna pop up. And like today, I was going over to Eric's for Rocksteady, and Larry wasn't coming with me, and I got in the car and I thought, I don't know how to get there. And I thought, how do I get there? And I thought, does he go by the ballpark and go down River Road that way? And I thought, no. And then it dawned on me that no, he goes out to Zorn Avenue and comes in that way. So, but I just do stupid stuff.
Well, not stupid, I think it's something that you haven't had to consciously think about,
Right.
so the first time you try it, you're like, oh yeah, well, Larry always, or whatever.
Yeah.
Using, technology too is kind of fun, we try to get up and, hey Google, what's the weather today?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
hey, what's the news? Tell me a story, or tell me a joke, or, the funny thing is that if we talk about any item our phone is showing ads for that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah, that happens all the time. for
So-
people.
But,
Yeah.
but I, you know, I don't think I have any dementia yet, but I experience that sometimes I get in the car and I'm thinking, no, wait a minute, which way do I need to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
even
all do
I
that to
feel
some
like,
Yeah.
degree, for sure.
Yeah.
Or especially if you guys aren't the drivers all the time.
Yeah.
too.
Right.
You know, that's
Right.
probably your first time that you drove over there by
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so it's very easy, you know, when you don't have to pay attention how to get somewhere,
Right.
you don't.
Well, and you know, I need to turn on Edith, but they have another sign above Edith. It says metal or something like
No.
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Right.
that's metal place.
And so,
Oh, yeah.
I was getting ready to turn, I thought, oh, that's metal. So I went right past it,
Yeah.
and then I thought, that has to be Edith.
Yeah, so it's, cause like right across from Edith,
So
it
then
becomes metal
I
way.
parked and went in, I couldn't get in, I had to call Eric, and I said, are you having class today?
Yeah,
He
cause
said,
the door was locked.
Oh,
And I
that
said, the
front
door's
door?
locked.
Oh,
So he said that he would come out, well then somebody went in, and the
Oh,
door was
oh.
open.
so you hadn't pulled it hard enough for the
I
right way?
guess
Yeah.
not.
Well, stuff like that happens all the
Yeah,
time.
it does
It
to
does.
everybody,
It
but
does.
it's also good, I think, to be aware of those things.
Yeah.
Maybe to not worry about them too
Mhm.
much, because a lot of us are going through that.
Yeah, I realize that, and,
But,
but I think it's what, when you've got
be aware.
Parkinson's, you think
Yeah,
that's what's
right.
causing it. And
right,
And everybody tells me they do the same
Yeah.
thing.
So maybe just think about the next time you do go somewhere like that, you take a second, wait a minute, let me think about how I'm gonna get there, before you even get to the car kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with technology, then maybe pull up the directions on like a Google Maps or
Mhm.
your maps on your phone, you know?
Right.
Not that you have to use that to guide you there, but you could at least
Right.
look at the route and say, oh yeah, that's the street I'm gonna
Right.
turn
yeah,
on.
right.
Well, the nice thing about that is that if you do use, say, Google Maps, it knows where the construction and accidents are.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
we
I-
have saved a lot of time, even, you know, it's a simple thing, just
Yes.
across town, it tells you don't go that
Yes,
way.
but when I leave here every day, when I always look to see the fastest route home.
Yeah.
Because I
That's
can
right.
go
Yeah,
64 and go
exactly.
71 on it, which is gonna get me there faster today.
Right,
Everywhere I
that's-
go, I do that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
'Cause you
yeah,
just never know.
it's right there, you might as well take
And
advantage
we have
of
not paid attention a couple of times, and we really regret
it.
it.
We paid for it.
yeah.
Well, and I can see another advantage of really being very comfortable with that technology as we get older, because if you're comfortable using it, if you do get lost, then you have something that helps
Can
you
help you.
Right,
get back on the right
Yes.
track.
Excellent.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I got my grandmother an Amazon Alexa, and she uses it all the time. And I always ask her, like, are you still, using your Alexa? She said, oh yeah. She was like, Alexa's almost like a friend to me at this point. She's like, I talk to Alexa all the time and just tell her to tell me random things, or tell me a joke, or tell me this or that.
Yeah.
And she's like, we almost have conversations at this point.
And it's great for people that live alone. that
Yeah,
don't
It's
have
I've
somebody
told a lot
very
of people that
helpful.
have become widows, I said, you need to get an Alexa or a Google,
Yeah.
or I said,
Or Siri or
or
whatever.
Siri, I said, you can just go in and say, good morning, Google, and
Yeah.
tell me a joke,
Yeah.
what's the weather gonna be like?
Yeah.
They're handy little devices to
Yeah,
have
they are.
if you
Mhm.
get used to them. It's hard to change to do new
It
stuff
is.
sometimes.
Mhm.
Right.
But yeah, if that's something you're comfortable with, then they're definitely handy to have.
Yeah.
They are.
Do you have one of those?
Well, yeah.
To get off this memory thing for a little bit,
Uh-huh.
swallowing.
Yes.
Mm.
As a therapist, what do you suggest to practice keep swallowing properly?
Well, again, my first suggestion would be to make sure your doctor knows that you're having some trouble swallowing. Is this something like a long-standing issue,
Every once in a while, I have difficulty.
just like choking?
No,
No,
just
can't get it down?
I feel like it's
getting
stuck.
out this part to
Stuck.
swallow.
Okay. I would make sure your doctor knows, because again, there's certain things that they may want to,
Check your
check
medication.
to look at. Could be medication related, could be a number of things. One of the things that we do for swallowing is practice on swallowing. So like some effortful kinds of swallowing and working on, squeezing as you, like hard swallowing kind of thing. That's another thing to practice on, but I would make sure your doctor knows that. because I think some of the things would be looked at into a little bit further.
Yeah, because doing speech therapy, even like working with a speech therapist, you think that working with a speech therapist is just for speech, but it's not, it's actually for swallowing, for all of those as well. If you go onto, our YouTube page, if you ever go on YouTube, we actually had, last month or, in April, we had a speech therapist, actually come, that's from Yobo, and she spoke all about that as well, about the swallowing, that it's a very, very common thing, with Parkinson's. A lot of it's due to, the lack of saliva that's being produced, whether that's medication or whether it's some other issue. But that's probably most likely kind of, sounds like what you kind of have, what's going on is the starting part. It's usually like that saliva. You don't realize how much saliva really makes a difference, but that saliva starts breaking down your food, for you. And so yeah, we can get you some information too on that as well. But yeah, like you said, the very first thing is you definitely want to let your doctor know, because they're going to be the ones that recommend you.
Does it help if you take smaller bites? Are you less?
Probably would, but
Yeah.
I do it.
Yeah.
Right, just,
You gotta
Do
retrain
you-
yourself.
Do you drink liquid with your food?
Yeah.
Okay, cause some people just eat, and then they drink.
Yeah, that's what
And I feel like it's better sometimes if you're making sure you're drinking after every couple bites of food, to kind of keep things, again, lubricated, moving, kind of
Okay.
thing. But yes, we definitely can treat swallowing, that's part of our job as a speech therapist, anything from here to here, so your swallow's right here, so that's us as well. Sometimes we can do x-ray tests. Have you ever had an x-ray swallow test done? No?
Haven't gone that far yet.
Haven't got that far yet.
I just thought I could do things to prevent it going any further.
I mean, there are tricks that we can do, but you don't wanna have to do those tricks unless you have to do them. You know what I mean? Like, turn your head down when you drink, those are kind of some tricks that we can use, but at the same time, you don't wanna get in the habit of doing that if you don't have to. You know what I mean?
No?
Yeah, it could just be a small fix that you might not realize going on.
Right, and it may not be a
Yeah.
fix for you specifically.
Yeah.
So, I would let your doctor know, and then, maybe if it's something that's happening fairly consistently, let's think about doing one of those swallow x-ray tests. They're super easy, very easy to do, takes 5 to 10 minutes, and then it gives us a good idea of exactly what's going on in here. Your little trap door, is it working right? Is it slow? Because, Parkinson's is a movement disorder. These are moving muscles, so it can affect the movement of those muscles as well. It can slow those things down. So that may be an option to think about or to talk to your doctor about to see if you would be a candidate for doing an x-ray test. Let's look inside, and then we can answer more specific questions at that point in time.
I don't have the problem consistently,
Yeah.
but every once in a while I will. It's probably due to lack of saliva at that time.
Yeah,
So maybe thinking about a little extra liquid,
There you go.
yeah.
a little bit of liquid before you eat. Get
Okay.
things going, make
And then
sure you
getting
have.
in to the doctor now, this is you saying that, is actually probably more important, is to get ahead of it, to be preventative, so it doesn't become a constant thing, because it can, and it does for a lot of people, it becomes a constant. We have a few people that, come to us a lot and talk about swallowing issues. Speech therapy, working with speech therapists helps a lot, but sometimes if it can be just a small change, of something that's going on that can prevent it from becoming an everyday occurrence type thing, that's where you'd rather be, so.
Are there any signs that that the swallowing issues would be reaching a stage where it is extremely problematic? I'm thinking of my dad, and he had a very rare type of Parkinson's, and it really wasn't discovered until about 3 weeks before he died. And he aspirated before anybody realized he was having trouble swallowing.
Really? So was he coughing much when he was eating and drinking?
That's been a long time ago. Yeah, probably 20
Because you can
years
have
ago.
what we call silent aspiration, so it's going down the wrong pipe and you don't feel it. And that's actually what you don't want to happen. You wanna feel it. So if you need to cough, I always tell people coughing's important. So if you need to cough, cough. That's your body's way of saying we need to get that out of there. So that's typically what people notice is
It's coughing.
the coughing, or I can't get it down. Gosh, it's stuck, and it's stuck right here. I get that a lot, or the medications get stuck, sometimes you get these big old horse pills, and you just have such a hard time getting them down. So those are the most common symptoms, is the food gets stuck, and then coughing a lot when I eat or drink. So if that happens consistently, then that's something we need to look into. Now, if it's just randomly, or not super often, then you just need to keep a close eye on it. Maybe just talk to your doctor, hey, this is happening not consistently, but fairly often, what do you think I need to do?
I
Sometimes
just was wondering if there's anything you can practice on to prevent it.
to prevent it, that's a good thought.
Drinking water.
Drinking water, yeah. I would make sure you have
Probably
plenty of
eating
liquid in your mouth.
Lower amounts.
Yeah, smaller one.
Yeah, smaller bites. And then honestly, it's not gonna hurt at all to just do some what we call effortful swallows. So just a little bit of saliva in your mouth, swallow hard, squeeze your throat muscles. That might help keep things moving for more preventative measures.
Yeah.
But I think if you can get in the habit of smaller bites, smaller drinks, making sure you are drinking with your meal, a little bit of liquid before you even start eating, kind of getting that habit.
Like you said, swallowing in between, even when you don't have to swallow.
Even when you don't have to
Right.
swallow, yep. That's
Yeah,
something else to do.
It doesn't work every single time, but one thing that I've always said that can be just like, until you figure out, what's going on, or to get to the doctor or something, because a lot of it seems like it's the saliva, production, is like, is biting your tongue, like lightly, or, even, as hard as you can, and it, kind of gives you a saliva producing kind of response a little bit, that can help, sometimes too. I usually tell people, that in a very short, quick fix if you need something in the short time frame. But then even like Zine, like a few people have said that just taking the speech therapy, like the voice activation class that we have online, you can go online, take that, it's free. But taking any type of like voice activation or speech therapy class like that, that's helped, even their swallowing and everything else. Like Dick, I was just talking to him, and he's been doing that for the past few weeks, and I can tell a huge difference in just his projection, and being able to hear him, because he almost got to a whisper, and then now he's back to his voice.
Is that guided by a speech therapist? Is that something that you all have?
Uh-huh.
Speech
Yeah, they're
therapists?
all,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Because you wanna make sure, and Pam will talk about this if you're able to come back in a couple weeks, she's gonna talk about voice, but you just wanna make sure you're doing the voice exercises correctly, because if they're done the wrong way, you can actually damage the vocal cords.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to make sure a speech therapist is kinda overseeing some of that to make sure you're doing it correctly. And like I said, Pam she's a specialist in voice, so you'll get some good information from her in a couple weeks regarding that. But yeah, anything you do online is just making sure it's done the correct way, so you're not damaging any of the vocal cords as you do the
I
exercises.
believe they're all the LSBT
The LSVT website.
certified.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're all live, so they
Yeah.
can see you
Okay.
and hear you, so they're
Perfect.
not just a recording that you're doing on your own.
Great,
Yeah.
that's excellent. That's perfect.
And there is a mouthwash,
Yes.
and even a spray
Spray,
that you
gums.
can use if your mouth is dry.
There's all kinds, I think, biotin products.
Biotin.
Gums, sprays, mouthwash, toothpaste, I think even if you got really severe dry mouth, those are great suggestions, yeah. Yeah, good ones. That's a good question, cause that's something that's not on the list is swallowing, so that's
You
a
mentioned it.
good thing to, I did?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty
perfect, I didn't think I did. Good, anything else? Other questions to about anything specific to this area of the body? That's what I know. Anything down below, I don't know much about.
I have a constant nasal drip in the back of my throat.
Yeah.
If you can fix that.
I can't fix that, unfortunately, I cannot. But you are not the only one that has that nasal drip. That's very common.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh, horrible.
especially this area of
Yeah.
the country, I think.
Have it all day, every day.
Yeah.
Really?
And one thing that will help it is I take so many supplements, I take allergy meds, all of that, and the one thing that does actually help it, I can't seem to remember to be consistent on it, it's the nasal sprays.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's, you know, I have the one that's like a, you know, Flonase, but then there's another prescription one as well. And
Yeah, I
it
can't-
really helps.
Yeah, I got that, and I can't remember the name of it either right now, but it's like the the step up prescription level
Yeah.
Flonase.
Yeah, and they work in two different ways. So,
I've
yeah,
tried it.
they do help with that drip once I'm consistent on, cause it's like, as soon as I get consistent on that, it falls apart. And so, that's the one thing I need to get better on, I'm consistent on so many things, on all of that stuff, except for the nasal sprays. I think it's because you're not taking it with everything else, and so wherever you have it, it's just kind of outside that line.
Right.
Well, they're all in the back.
I know, yeah, that's the thing, I have them in the bathroom.
I know where they are. Oh,
What else?
anything?
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Well,
I know it's kind of short and sweet.
Yeah,
Ed.
thank you.
Yeah.